documentary. Others, it's I really want to run a marathon or write a book or buy a ranch in Montana. Um, Whatever it is, you know, you should go for it, and you can go for it when you create the structure, because I think all of us really do much better with structure.
Mm-hmm.
um, my experience as a professional clinical counselor and stuff is that structure makes people feel comfortable. We, as human beings, we are like a million years of evolution tells us if we know what to expect, we feel a lot better, right?
Right.
So when you, Jim, when you need to drive to the store, are you particularly stressed about the actual drive to the store? Like, how am I going to get there?
Yeah, of
No.
course not.
Why? Because there's structure. You know, I need to go down the road. I need to take a left here, a right here, whatever. You could get in the car, start to take random lefts and rights, and maybe you'll get to the store. But that's, that's kind of that point. When we create structure, it becomes a lot easier.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course that structure often starts by just beginning the process.
Yeah, funny thing when we actually start to take, move forward with something
Mm-hmm.
versus thinking about planning. And you do have to do planning. I don't want to just say go blindly, but sometimes you do have to just sort of step off the cliff and commit yourself.
In your description, our bio that was sent over to me, there's a couple topics on here, and I want to bring some value to our listeners. And
Sure.
the one of the topics I want to talk about, because I think it's really important, it's along the lines of being epic. The, the topic was how to be epic at work, even when you're working remotely. And COVID has changed the way that we've all do work. I think, gosh, for the better, because nothing better than working from home, in my opinion. I got my kids here, my stuff. But oftentimes we can fall short too by the distraction. So how do we be epic working remotely?
Well, I think you need to, first of all, you need to double down on being proactive with connecting with the people that you work with. It is
Mm-hmm.
kind of easy for us to sit at home and like, oh yeah, Jim's there. I need to talk to Jim. I need to, and that's, I think that's one of the big things with working remote that you don't have is when you're in an office, the other people are around.
Mm-hmm.
There is that social connection. Working remote can feel at times very lonely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so you can't meet, I can't like get up to get a cup of coffee. I see you and go, oh, hey, Jim, I have I'm having this problem with, with this thing. Do you have any, I know you had worked on something, similar. Do you have any suggestions? But when we're working remotely, we don't do that. So I want to say double down on being proactively reaching out, being social, right? You should there's a certain part of even the hardest work. There's some social. Those moments where you're connecting. That's what makes a team.
Yeah.
Um, Also, when we're working remotely, it's easy to just have do work all the time. And I'm a really big proponent that part of your epic life is having those clearly delineated. This is a work time. This is not a work time. I worked for 5 years for Intel, great company, international team, but I had really strict guidelines of when was working and when I wasn't. Otherwise, people would schedule meetings with me at 10 o'clock at night because it was convenient for them. Well, what I found was it really kind of stunk because I get off, have to go to bed because I had a meeting at 5 in the morning with someone in Europe. But now I'm all hopped up about work at 10 o'clock at night. That really isn't healthy.
Yeah.
So I think having that here's a work time, here's not a work time is really essential. I think one of the things I've heard in talking with people and doing some counseling with people who are working remotely is they're kind of like, well, my boss knows that I have all the stuff, so I'm always available. And it's hard, but you got to say, hey, this isn't a work time. I'm done.
Yeah.
You had this much amount of my time, but now it's my family time. Um, the other thing that I think is really important for working, creating that epic workspace, if you're a manager or whatever, is um, treat your remote working people just like you would at uh, in the office. Bring in speakers, have the same kind of content that you would normally have. You're just doing it over Zoom or whatever.
Yeah.
Because I think that kind of development, that kind of look, sometimes companies just need someone to come in and be a big cheerleader, a big rah rah, have a big burst of energy that helps people to feel connected.
I'm taking notes. It's funny. A couple things that you touched on. One of them, having your work schedule, even though you're working from home, it is easy to get caught up in overworking or forgetting about the importance of your family and some of your other obligations. I'm always a victim of that because I love what I do. And I find myself in my office more often than not. Um, One of the first things you touched on though was interaction with others, and what a great invention in technology Zoom is that we can all connect via face, even though we're remote. I joined two different syndicates, the Arte Syndicate and then the Lions Den with Sean Whalen out of Utah, just for simply having interaction with other business leaders during COVID.
Absolutely. And look, Zoom is fabulous.
Yeah.
When I was in graduate school, when I started off, we were doing go-to meeting, and the problem was I was doing kind of a virtual masters, and we could only see 5 people at a time. But then when they switched to Zoom, all of a sudden I could see the whole class. And
Mm-hmm.
that for me made a big difference. I'm a highly social person. I love that I can Zoom with people, but I do miss the in-person thing. I've done a couple of keynotes and stuff, and I've had to just record them and then they're played. It is really challenging as a speaker to not have the audience there. I
Yeah.
really got to be honest. I'm excited that we seem to be getting back to some in-person meetings and conferences, because as a speaker, and look, Jim, you're a speaker, it's kind of hard just to talk into a camera and not really know how engaged people are and how's it going, right?
Yeah.
As a speaker, I'm looking to say, is the audience with me or are they not with me?
Yeah.
What do I have to adjust a little?
Yeah.
And
No,
it's
it's
kind of hard when everyone is sitting slack faced, sort of, and then they're looking down. They're looking at a text. Not that they're not going to be looking at a text while you're talking, but it's just I don't know. It's just more challenging.
yeah, sure, sure. A couple more questions as we begin to wrap up a little bit.
Sure.
Talking about your book and some of the learnings or teachings. You've got a question up here: how to turn roadblocks into scenic detours. And I also love that statement because oftentimes the least likely is the best thing that can happen to you.
It is, and here's the thing about roadblocks, Jen. I think that roadblocks in general are a mirage. We put stuff up in front of
Mm,
ourselves and go, "That's a roadblock for me doing this," but it isn't actually. It's a mirage. You put it up in front of yourself, right?
yeah.
A perfect example is back in the last century, 1999. Um, I was living in Boston, but I got to say, my heart was in San Francisco. All my friends from college were there. My best friend lived there. Every time I went to visit, I was like, and I lived in San Francisco in the early 90s. So I already knew what it was like to live there. And I'm like, gosh, I really want to get back there. But I was like, but I can't move. I got a good job. I don't want to drive my car across the country. And then in a fateful week, My car got totaled. I got fired from my job, and I broke up with my then fiance because that just wasn't going to work. So
Yeah.
all of these roadblocks that I put in my way, life came and took them away. And I moved back to San Francisco and been here for 20 plus years. I love it. It's great. It's where I want to live. I think I had that realization that like those not wanting to drive my car across the country wasn't a roadblock. In our life, if we look at it and say, exactly what is it? Stop, assess, plan, and then achieve and enjoy your journey. Right now, look, some roadblocks are definitely much bigger. The pandemic, huge roadblock for me. I had just in February 2020, I just finished my hours for my licensing. I was all ready to go take that licensing exam. I was ready to go out and speak. And a month later, I wasn't supposed to leave my apartment.
Yeah. Tough.
Yeah, definitely. But I looked at it and I said, hey, I wrote a book. I pivoted from what I thought I was going to do to something that is so much better, so much more epic.
Yeah, I love that. And like you said, sometimes roadblocks lead to wonderful scenic detours.
They do.
Well, if people want to find you and learn more about you or get your book, which I'd look forward to reading, where can they get you at?
Well, if you go to zandersprague.com, that's ZanderSprague.com, you can find out about my book. You can find out where I'm speaking. If you want me to come in and speak, you can get me there. Book is available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Apple Books, all the major retailers. And just one thing that I want to leave your audience with, 2 words that could really help everyone. Not yet. So powerful, right? Have you bought that ranch? Not yet. Doesn't mean if you say no, it's just a full stop. But not yet opens up so many possibilities for all of us to say, I'm working on it. Sometimes our epic dreams take a long time to get to. That's okay. Not yet. I was on a 7-year journey through graduate school and internship to get my license. Do you have your license? Not yet. I'm working on it.
I love that. Great advice. Great 2 words to live by. There's no reason to say no if it's something you want. Not yet. I love that. Well, I'll put your website in our show notes. Thank you very much for being on the show today and sharing your book. Epic begins with one step forward. Zander Sprague.
Thanks so much, Jim.
Thank you for listening to today's show. It is my pleasure and honor to interview all of the guests that have been on the Answer is Yes podcast. If you have enjoyed the show, please go on iTunes and subscribe, give a rating, or simply tell a friend about the show. We also believe in the message of our guests and the positive influence of their stories. As my own mentor and coach, David Meltzer, has taught me, spend some time every day thinking and writing about the things in your own life that you have more than enough of. You will find out how blessed we really are. Please visit my website, livelifedriven.com, for the latest updates about me and what I'm doing. Plus, I post a monthly blog about the many topics on this show. This podcast can also be found there. As I learned early on in life, what you believe is what you will achieve. Thanks, Mark Victor Hansen, and thank you, and have a great week.